Welcome to Storyforge Live. It's Friday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. I'm Barry Chandler, co-founder of Storyforge. I'm here with my co-founder partner in Storyforge, Hayley Boning. And we are in the second of our office hours that we started this week, where we're setting aside time to chat with business owners, to help business owners as they navigate through this unusual time. We are acknowledging that it's not business as usual anymore, that things have changed massively. And we were trying to think, how can we best support our clients? How can we best support those businesses who are trying to figure out how to still achieve the goals they've set, how to realize the audacious vision, be it changing the world or changing their lives somehow? How are we going to do that in a vastly different world today? So we're going to use this time to talk through the strategies that we've used over the past few years with our clients to help them get clarity internally on what their message, their direction, their vision is, and then externally how to bring that to life so that everybody understands why you as a business are relevant even in these crazy times. So we're going to talk today about communication and communicating change. I had a couple of hours of a workshop yesterday with a client, and we talked about the two themes that are emerging right now throughout all of this craziness. The first is that there are things that have changed utterly in business, the day-to-day, the processes, the how are we going to do this, and how are we going to do that in a new way, from managing remote teams to how we attract or engage with clients. Those things have changed utterly. But the second theme is quite interesting and can be overlooked easily, I think, in the current firefighting, and that's the theme of things that haven't changed at all, things that are even more important now, those foundational elements of your beliefs, your vision, your purpose, the things that customers and employees are crying out to seek, to find, to hold on to. They're looking to understand what you stand for and why they should care that you exist, and what relevance you have to their lives. So we're going to focus on that over these office hours that we'll host here virtually. But I know today, Hayley, you had a good suggestion about how we could deal with the things that have changed utterly, which is change. You know, things have just changed, and how do we manage and navigate through this change? So I think that's something we'll dive into a little bit today. Hayley is in Columbus, right? You're in Columbus this morning?
Yes, I'm in Columbus. It's a beautiful, bright, sunny day here in the Midwest. How's California, Barry?
I'm in Southern California, and it is unseasonably wet and dark, and there's about 36 hours of rain that we're in the middle of, which is very unusual. But I suppose when we're quarantined at home, there's nowhere to go anyway. You can just look out at it, look out at the wet, cold misery out there. But yeah, it's normally it's sunny here, not today.
Well, we've traded places for the day, although it's a little bit cold here. We had a few days of beautiful, absolutely beautiful spring weather, which was fantastic. But yeah, it's turned cold. Welcome to April in Ohio.
Yeah. The Beach Boys had it wrong with California. It does rain in Southern California. So we're going to talk a little bit about change today, and the massive change that businesses are facing on a day-to-day basis, and then how we can tie that to the things that haven't changed. So perhaps, Hayley, you could talk a little bit about this mindset shift that business owners are having to find themselves facing now.
That's great. Well, I was thinking a lot about this yesterday as I was preparing for our office hours today, and then this morning I went on to LinkedIn and I saw an article, which I'll share a little bit later today. For those of you who want to read the full article, go to my LinkedIn page. But it was an interview with one of our favorite clients with Highlights for Children. Their CEO, Kent Johnson, talking about the changes that have happened in their business and some of the mindset shifts that have had to occur. And one of the things the metaphors that he used, which I really enjoyed, because they're a real data-driven business, and he is a former physicist and a data-driven, rational, logical thinking guy. And he said that he and the rest of the leadership team of Highlights have had to acknowledge, first to themselves, and then really to the rest of the Highlights team, that their crystal balls have dropped and shattered on the ground. And that we can no longer rely on the data and the trends and all of these things that we've seen to guide us in our decision making. So he and his leadership team have had to be far more intuitive in how they're leading and the decisions that they're making. And so one of the things he talked about was going back to their mission, going back to their purpose, going back to their beliefs, thinking about their stakeholders and using those essential things about their business that haven't changed for 90 odd years and that won't change during this crisis. It's interesting. It may be a little bit easier for a business with that kind of history, 3 generations of Kent's family reading highlights for children, to see the timeline of history and where their business sits on it. But this focus on their mission and using mission and purpose and vision and beliefs has enabled them to make some really important decisions. So the first one that he made was actually very early on. So some of their partners and their clients and customers are in China. They have a very big business in China. So they saw this pandemic change happen early. When the kindergartens closed, when the schools closed in China, they moved very, very quickly to make a digital library of their content available for free to all of their partners so that they could get as much information out into the homes for parents to be able to use with children as they possibly could. Now, someone with a mindset of fear, of protecting what you have, might not have made that decision. They would have said, we shouldn't be giving away anything for free right now because times are tough. We need to protect whatever revenue we have. But Highlights for Children and their leadership team used their mission and their purpose and their beliefs, this world that they were trying to create, as the filter for their thinking. And it helped them make that decision and strengthen that relationship with their stakeholders and get them closer to fulfilling their purpose. So I thought that
it wasn't just about profitability. It wasn't how can we sell more guides or sell more books or sell more magazines or sell more educational tools. It was rather, the world has changed. What do we have to do differently to still fulfill that vision that we have, or achieve that vision?
Absolutely. Yeah. This is not a business that's being profligate right now. You know, they really are thinking very, very hard about decisions that have to be made so that they can continue to fulfill their purpose and their vision. But it doesn't restrict them from thinking creatively and thinking innovatively. So right. I think the first, and he shared many wonderful examples of how that leadership team is using purpose and using their vision and their values and their beliefs as a filter for thinking. So I'd encourage everyone to check out my LinkedIn page later to read a little bit more about that and some of the insights I pulled. But I think that really brings me to my first insight about a mindset for leading change. And that is to just ask yourself the question, what works now? So you mentioned, Barry, that that things like tactics and strategies and the how of how we do our business, it's dramatically changing for all of our clients, for our colleagues, for our partners. We've had to really rethink how we are achieving what we want to achieve, how we're fulfilling our purpose and realizing our vision and making profitability and bringing cash in. We have to acknowledge, of course, that massive change has occurred, but we can't focus on the past. If we get stuck in the past and stuck in what was, stuck in what always has worked for us, then we're going to lose out on the opportunity to find different ways to fulfill our purpose. So we have to ask, what works now? What is getting through now? How can we serve our customers? How can we help realize this vision? And go back to those essential pieces of DNA of our business that will never change, that are just at our core, and use them to think creatively.
So that's not that's not staying where you are or wondering why the things you've done don't work any longer, or lamenting the fact that they don't work, but rather as quickly as possible, with an open mind, deciding that, making the conscious decision, if the world changes, we must change because we have a bigger vision to achieve here.
Absolutely. Yeah. We all have to give ourselves some amount of time to just grovel, right? It's human nature. We need to have some time groveling, grieving, curl up into a small ball in the corner and just shake and cry for a couple of hours, and then pick yourself up and say, okay, that is past. And now we're looking at the future. Right. So what can I do? What can we do in this new world to still fulfill that purpose and get a little bit closer? It's especially important, I think, and this is something that I'm hearing from our clients and colleagues that we're talking with this week, especially as businesses are getting closer to decisions that really impact people. And I've been really, really impressed with some of our clients, our colleagues and friends who've been finding really creative ways to think about how they're leveraging their people and how they're supporting their teams in this time. So thinking about what works now, whether it's retooling swaths of their employee populations or their staff that were typically customer focused, redeploying people, furloughing before laying people off. But before making these big decisions that impact people or really impact the foundation of your business, finding ways to be even more creative and using purpose as a filter.
Right. Yep.
So I think
so if anybody, if anyone has any questions as we go through this, feel free to pop them in the chat or email them to us at purpose@storyforge.co anytime. Put our email address up there. We'd be happy to answer them. We're trying to use this time to work through our own strategies that we deploy, working with clients like Highlights for Children and other incredible clients we've had the privilege of working with over the last number of years. We really want to just break down the process, break down the why behind the strategy, why we found this to be the approach that has worked, and share with you stories of businesses that are figuring out elements of this. I don't know that anybody has it all figured out, but we're all figuring it out together. But there is a formulaic approach to addressing some of the challenges, and I think that's what we want to make sure we're getting across in these live streams. So feel free to at any time ask us a question or send it to us offline as well. Let's talk a little bit about communicating change and knowing that things have changed utterly. There are team members who are now remote in the most part, who have never been further away from the center of decision making. What tips do you have for business leaders to consider so that everyone is on the same page about what's going to happen or what we hope to happen?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to remember that in all businesses, I think it's people first. So it can actually be helpful to sit down on the ground, get a blank sheet of paper and a couple of markers, and actually draw a stakeholder map for your business, starting with those core people, your employees, your team, and then working your way out. And making sure that as you're communicating during these times of change, that you're considering all of those stakeholders, from those who are the most impacted by the decisions that you're making, and then out to those who are ancillary or are indirectly impacted, and making sure that you're considering who they are, what their needs are, what might have changed for them. One of the worst offenses that we're seeing in the last couple of weeks, I know, Barry, we've talked about this, is clearly people whose communication plans have been unaltered in any way by the global pandemic. Whether it's advertising or internal communications or business development, tone deaf doesn't begin to describe how poorly these things are landing. So you really have to rethink everything in the light of where people are and consider each of those stakeholders. So remember that it's people first. So before you announce any changes, before you talk about any changes, think about those stakeholders and then figure out how you as a business can support them. So consider the people first and recognize that everybody's on their own change journey. Right.
Yep. We've seen quite a few businesses naively or just tone deafly proceeding into the ether with their message as if nothing has ever happened. And it's interesting, actually, even on Facebook, looking at ads that were clearly started weeks ago, months ago maybe, and are just running continuously. The comments that are now showing up underneath these ads, I saw an ad this morning for Carvana, the company that you can buy your car online. They'll deliver it to your door on the back of a truck. You've got 7 days to try it out. And people's comments are saying things like, I don't need a car right now. I'm quarantined at home. Or why would you advertise to me when the only place I can go to is the supermarket? And so all these comments that are clearly they're not being moderated. The ads are still running. And while I'm sure there's a need for vehicles to be sold, as there always is, the fact that no one is addressing any of these comments nor the fact that the ad hasn't in any way been altered to address the current situation. So I think that's a good point. Is being clear about acknowledging we're here. This is it. It's new. It's different. But we've got a plan, or we've got an approach, or here's how we're planning on dealing with it. Yeah.
One of the other things that I think is important is, especially in times of a crisis, and one could say this is one long, big, slow motion crisis that we're dealing with right now, is to not delegate communications. So I know some of our clients have really stepped up their communication and made sure it's the CEO, it's the founder, it's the leader of the company or the leaders of the company that are doing that communicating. So It's important not to delegate communications at a time like this. So whether it's the updates on how the business is doing or communicating the really hard stuff, leaders can't shy away from being the voice of the company, from being open and honest and transparent, and especially when it impacts people.
JR has a question for us. He asked a question on Facebook. Is it advisable to be transparent with concerns about business survival odds? Which is it's a great point, isn't it? There are businesses that aren't going to survive, and leaders perhaps know this.
Yeah.
What would your advice be on that?
That's a great question, JR. Thanks for asking it. I think one of the other principles to keep in mind of communications is that speculation is your enemy. So in all cases, what we don't want to do is speculate. We need to balance that with honesty. We need to balance that by, as we're communicating with our teams, to say, look, this is really difficult. We don't know what's next. So acknowledging that uncertainty, acknowledging the things that are out of our control, and then acknowledging those things that are in our control. So how we're approaching it, how we're tapping into our creativity, how we're sharing the burden and supporting each other through all of this. We need to talk about that too. But really, it can be hard as a business leader to communicate during times like this, because often we feel like we have to be the strong ones. We have to be the ones who have all of the answers. But this is exactly the time, I think, when it's important to also be human and to say, here are the things that I don't know. And that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And JR's follow-up question is a good one too. Like, does it risk inciting panic amongst clients and customers? And I think, Haley, your point is about honesty and about humanness. I think humanity is an important one. Look, none of us are here in this alone, and it's these are not unique situations that any business is finding themselves specifically in. We're all in this, so I think that it is okay to be more honest about the struggles that we're facing while being hopeful about the future and what we're doing to address the challenges that we're faced with. I'm seeing great examples of businesses finding support amongst their communities and amongst their clients when they're open and honest and being upfront with the challenges they're facing and asking for help. And so I'd love to see more businesses being honest. If there is a real danger to survival, there could be a support network in those that we serve and the communities that we're in. Yeah. Rooney asked a question on YouTube. Do we have any advice for single employee consultants in this time? We're not far away from that ourselves. We're a small consulting business where there's two of us and a small team. This can be a scary time if you're a single employee consultant, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think more than ever before, the clarity that's necessary about who you are and what you do and the value that you provide to your customers can be something that maybe can give you some comfort. It's certainly, as Barry and I have been talking over the last couple of weeks, it's getting down to the essentialism of our business, and making sure that as we're communicating with our employees, we're communicating with our clients, we're getting back to the core of it. What do we do best? What's our superpower? How do we help people? How can we help people during this time? And then trying to, 2x do that for our clients, for our customers, and also in forums like this. So, you may be an absolute expert in what you do, Rooney, and there may be other ways that you can employ that expertise right now for your clients. For paying clients, but there may be other ways for you to employ that expertise that both will fulfill you personally, but may actually lead to the potential for more work.
Yeah, I agree with that. And for me, when I think about consulting work and how it's changed, or how many consultants are finding themselves with work and projects that are paused, that are pushed off, that'll be looked at later, while their potential clients or their clients are dealing with, in their mind, bigger, more pressing fires to put out. I think there's two things that spring to mind. The first is having great clarity yourself as to your relevance to your clients. So historically, maybe you sold it, or you offered, or you presented your services in a certain way, and maybe that suited the time that you offered those. But today, we know that the landscape has changed, for not just us, but for our clients as well. So how are we able to demonstrate? How are we able to first be clear on how we're now relevant in light of the situation our clients find themselves in? And to Hayley's point, is there an intersection there between what our clients need and what we're best at? And how do we communicate that in a way that doesn't take advantage or seeks to make money from COVID-19, and use that as the reason for the need for your services, but rather demonstrates a deep understanding of what the client is going through, so that you seem like, or you appear to be earnest and meaningful in what you're offering, because you're solving a problem. We've long maintained that we don't sell products or services. We sell outcomes, and we sell results. There are results that you can probably get for your clients, or new clients, or different clients, at the intersection of the things you're best at and what they truly need today. So I would spend some time being really clear about that yourself, and then communicating that in a very simple, a really clear, elegant way of presenting that to the client, so that it acknowledges their challenges, but presents your best at, and why you should be considered. Yeah. So thanks for that question.
I might add something to that for Rooney that actually harkens back to the question that JR posted earlier about panic. I think we're seeing some messages come out that are really panic inducing, because they're coming from a place of fear. So please hire me. I'm going out of business. I need your help. Those, will go, so far with people who want to support you, who've worked with you before, and who care about you personally. But I think it's far more productive to think, as Barry said, about that need that you solve for your clients. So what are they struggling with right now? How do you solve that need? And offering it in terms of a surgical opportunity for you to take care of a specific thing for them that you do better than anyone else, and to do that with a sense of positivity. So great questions, guys. Keep them coming.
You mentioned not delegating communication, Hayley. Another thing that we've always recommended to our clients, and it's never been more important, is the idea of consistency with communication.
Yeah.
If we have knowledge, or a position, or a direction that we're about to pursue, let's talk a little bit about the consistency of kind of sticking with that same message and story across the organization. And that starts at the top, doesn't it?
It does. I think it's never been more important, I think, for leaders to come together as a business and remind themselves of who are we, why do we exist, what do we stand for, what are those beliefs and principles that have created this business from nothing into an idea, and how do we communicate that? What story are we telling about who we are and what we do, and the outcomes that we get for our clients and the results that we can get for them? It can be human nature to flail about at a time like this, and to start grabbing at shiny things and thinking about reinventing yourself. And as you said earlier, Barry, reinvention of your mission, of the core strategy or strategies that you have to employ right now, and certainly reinvention of tactics is important. But it is not time to reinvent the essential DNA of your business. Now, I think what we're seeing is a lot of people haven't done the work to actually discover what that DNA is and find ways to articulate it in meaningful ways that kind of cut through all the clutter. So it's the perfect time for those businesses actually to do that hard work, to answer those hard questions, and do it in a very simple, concise, relevant way.
When I spoke with a client yesterday about this exact issue, this is a client where we started this project work with them maybe a month before coronavirus hit, and they were dealing with, as soon as it hit, it changed their business instantly, in an instant. They were just in a particularly susceptible business to this. And our work was paused. And we got back on a phone call yesterday to work through some of the elements of this work that had been paused. And I put the question back on them. I said, look, you're fighting fires on a daily basis. You are reimagining, rethinking your processes, your approaches, how you communicate with your employees, with your customers. And I asked them, why have you carved out 2 hours of your day for us to think about medium to long-term strategy? And I wanted to know why. Why do they think that was important? We know why it's important. That's our entire business, right? Is thinking about that. But I wanted to know why they decided to do it. And they said, because this will pass. And they said, now is the time for us to get super clear on the business that we're in, so that we can be articulate and clear with our employees, so that they know why we're making decisions, and so that we can come out of this even stronger. So they found somewhere, they dug deep, they found the peace of mind, and they found the ability to think beyond the current crisis, knowing that there are many crises that businesses face, maybe not as devastating as perhaps this has been for many, but they know that they'll come out the other side stronger, because they'll be super clear on their vision world and for their business, the beliefs that they are, that so represent who they are as leaders. So I think that it is a time where possible to, if you can carve out that time to get that clarity, because it informs all the decision making. They said themselves, there's so many decisions to make on a day-to-day basis. They need a filter for thinking about them. How do we decide whether it's A or B, whether it's number one or number two? And we would always argue that it's clarity of vision and of purpose and beliefs and an understanding of those that you serve. At the intersection of all those things is the ability to make better decisions. So I don't think there's ever been a greater time for businesses to need that now, when they're faced with hundreds of new decisions that they've never made before.
Yeah. You've heard me share this analogy before, but I often at times like this think about Napoleonic warships. So Napoleonic warships, these huge, complex, massive structures with the cannons and the sails and the lines and all of that, they're made for battle. Right. And your business has been made for battle. Your business has been made to go out, get customers, serve customers, create products, deliver services, right? You are a Napoleonic warship. And even Napoleonic warships have times when they're stuck in the doldrums, where the wind has disappeared, not a lick of wind, and it's hot, and you're in a dead calm, and there's no other ship to be seen for miles and miles. And what do they do during that time? They don't lay in their hammocks and whittle away whalebone all day. They pull down the sails, they pull down the lines, they mend the lines, they mend the sails, they swab the decks, they fix everything, right? They get that ship ready for battle. So, it can be very hard during a crisis like this to fear the lack of wind, and to sit and stare at the horizon and just hope that by staring at it, ships will come over it. But I think right now we have this window of opportunity to focus on our ships, to make sure everything is ship tight, everything is right. We have the sail plan. We know the direction that we're going in. So it's actually, I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but it's really a gift we've been given if we can capture it.
I agree with that. A comment here from Sarah Lowenstein. She misses us. Sarah works with Avina Women's Care in Ohio, a remarkable organization helping women, obstetricians and gynecologists, a remarkable organization that we had the pleasure of working with for many months. We miss you guys too. And you deserve a shout out, Sarah, because I've been watching with interest how you've communicated through this new world that we find ourselves in. And we went through this work to pinpoint what was the story of Avina Women's Care before all this struck. We spent a lot of time asking those deep questions, didn't we? You and I went to physicians to have conversations. We listened, we learned, we got a deep understanding of the vision, the purpose, the mission. And then you turned that into communication long before this crisis struck, through your website and through internal branding, etc. And now I'm seeing you leveraging it for your communication about coronavirus, using your vision and your purpose and your story as a filter for thinking. So kudos to Sarah, and I'd recommend anybody goes who's interested in checking that out goes to avinawomenscare.com to see the website. I'm going to put that up on a banner, Sarah. Let me see. I'm going to add that up here. You've done a great job. Women's care, can't spell at this time of the morning. So congratulations on that. I'm sure you're dealing with a lot of challenges right now, but I know that the communications are in safe hands with what you're doing. So congratulations on that. Haley, do you have any advice for businesses who may decide to offer services in a different payment way, or demand payment, or seek payment in a different way? So deferred compensation, pro bono work, changing the requirements that businesses have, knowing that their own clients are struggling to make payments.
Absolutely. We're seeing this at every size business in every industry. So I spent many, many years in the retail industry, Fortune 500 retail company. And what I'm hearing from some of my friends in retail, that even the largest retailers in our country are reaching out to vendors and partners and saying, what can we do about terms? How can we work on these payment terms? And where it's working, it is working because it's a dialogue, not a soliloquy. So it's working where partners and customers and vendors are having conversations with each other, honest, transparent conversations about what their needs are and what their ability to pay is, and are coming together to an agreement about something that works for everybody. So looking for those win-win-win situations where everybody wins. What is not working, what may work in the short term, but I can tell you will absolutely not work in the long term, is strong arming. Is businesses that are reaching out and saying, you must do this, or you will not get our business again. You must take these terms, otherwise we're going to go find somebody else. Because as you said earlier, Barry, this too shall pass.
Right.
And while this may pass, our memories will not. We have very long memories. All of your stakeholders do. So doing it from a place of love and gratitude and care, and starting with that mindset is the best way to approach those conversations.
So back to one of the earlier questions that JR asked regarding communicating, even if things are bad, the danger of that. There's a difference between, there's this, we see businesses speculating too, don't we? We see leaders speculating, which can cause even more chaos and disharmony within the organization. So talk a little bit, Haley, from your experience about how to avoid speculation and how to know when you're speculating as opposed to communicating with care and hope.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard, I think, for leaders, because we all do want to have the answers. And it's very easy to say, my job as the leader is to answer questions and to have answers. But the best thing you can do is really ask yourself, do I know the answer to this question? So right. I'll tell you a story. Many, many years ago when I was working in retail, we were working, as I did for 17 years. I worked on mergers, acquisitions, downsizings, resizings, rehirings. And one of our businesses we were preparing to sell. But I was working on a very small team. We were all under NDAs. It wasn't something that was final at that point, but we were working on it. There were rumors in the marketplace about that sale. And at a very, very large employee gathering, the current CEO of that business was asked directly by an employee, is our business for sale? And his answer was, absolutely not. And about a week and a half later, he was invited to a meeting, asked to sign an NDA, and was told, in fact, the business was for sale. So because that business was part of a larger one, he didn't really know the answer to that question. He couldn't have known the answer to that question. His definitive answer was something that came from a place, I think, of love and care, wanting to assuage fears on the part of his team, wanting to make people feel better, wanting to get people focused on the business. But it was a terrible way to go about it. There's very little that we are certain about, especially now. I think it's important to be clear about what we know and what we don't know, what we can be certain about and what we can't be certain about. And I think that's where, going back to the core story of your business, who are you? Why do you exist? What is this vision that you have for the future that you're going to work tirelessly toward, regardless of how you get there? and being clear about those things, because those are the things that the economy can't take away, that competition can't take away, that the times can't take away. Those things you can be absolutely certain about. So focus on those things when talking to your clients, and be very, very careful about stating things as fact that aren't, or about speculating.
So for those who've just joined, we're here every Wednesday and Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern to help address some of the challenges that businesses are facing when it comes to direction, clarity, message, story, communicating with customers and employees. And we've been taking some questions here throughout the live stream so far. So we'll be doing this every week. Something that springs to mind, and we almost take it for granted at this stage in Storyforge, because we've been doing this now for a few years, where our whole business is based around helping other businesses get clarity on their vision, their purpose, their beliefs, these foundational elements of their business. And what we often come across are businesses that are large in size, sometimes hundreds of employees. And this work has never been articulated. This work has never been done. These things are not obvious to everyone in the organization. The leadership are clear, or the leader or the founder is super clear. And he or she often wonders why nobody else gets it, because they're often thinking 5 years into the future, or assuming everybody else gets it. But one of the things I've noticed is that anytime a business hires a marketing agency to develop a website, or to develop a logo, or develop a brand perhaps for them, one of the handoffs is a brand book. It is a very nicely designed, sometimes heavy document that contains all the instructions for how not to use the logo. Don't tilt it at 30 degrees. Don't use these colors. Only use these Pantones. Don't use any others. Very clear instructions. And I often see these sitting on shelves gathering dust, because, well, how useful is it beyond once you've developed your website and the designer understands, it just gathers dust. But you've probably invested a lot of money in getting that done. How often have you spent a similar amount of money, or any money at all, and actually documenting the foundational beliefs beyond, so past the colors, before the color schemes, before the website, before the marketing words that make their way to the website? How have you ever actually created your meaningful story, so that beyond handing over your logo guide to a new employee, you can say, actually, now that you're a new employee, you're going to want to know these things. Here's what we stand for. Here's how we make decisions. Here's the world we're trying to build. We want your contribution. We want to know what it is you think we should do towards this, so that everybody in the organization is moving in the same direction. They all make decisions the same way. So back to this point of clarity that Haley mentioned, and consistency, and everybody being on the same page. You're making so many new decisions in your business today that you didn't have to make for the past few years, perhaps, reimagining every aspect of the business. Wouldn't it be the greatest use of time that everyone is making decisions or reimagining towards the same end, towards that same vision, towards that same goal? So that's really what we're using this time for, is to not focus on logos or looks or colors, but rather the deeper foundational elements of the business that I think are going to will transcend all of that branding work, but will actually lead you to make better decisions, hopefully, as you move forward, especially considering the new world that we're facing today.
Yeah. And I think that goes for logos and for colors, and also for tactics. So as we are having to reinvent all of the tactics and the strategies that we're employing in our business, it's a little like colors. I remember sitting in a meeting with a new business founder, an entrepreneur, with all of these colors and logos laid out on the table. And the agency that we were working at the time said something very, very smart, which was, it's not about whether you like it, it's about whether it works. Right? So if it was about liking it, we could just pick the colors that we like. It's about whether that color works. Well, how do you answer that question? Does it work? You have to have something to report it back to. So as you look at your tactics and your strategies, you have to say, well, how will we know if this strategy worked? You'll know if you have articulated who you serve and why you serve them, how you serve them, what vision you have that you're trying to achieve. That gives you the ability to know whether these new tactics and these new strategies and these new ways of being that we're all employing are actually working.
Right. That makes complete sense. So if anybody's got any questions on these live streams, as you've so kindly shared some of your questions this morning. Feel free to put them into the comments anytime while we go live, or you can also send them to us between our live streams, between our sessions that we'll do here every Wednesday and Friday. You can send them to us at purpose@storyforge.co, and we'll answer any of those questions. But what we'll do as we continue and try and navigate the new business, because it's not business as usual, we'll be working with our clients and helping them with strategies to help them move their business forward and achieve the audacious goals they've set. And we'll come back here and we'll share some of those stories with you, and share some of the examples of things that are working and things that aren't working, and also things that we see day to day outside of our client work that we can bring back and have a discussion with you on. So hopefully this has been of some help to you. I think it's what I also like about this is now our second one that we've done, is that it brings Haley and I together face to face, which is always a good thing. And the fact that we've got other folks who've got questions and want to come together to chat, that's a great thing as well. I think a community in times of isolation is always welcome. So we will be back here again on next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time. I know that Rooney is joining us from San Diego, so maybe I can see you out the window here somewhere. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday. Anything, Haley, that I have forgotten?
No, I think that's it. It's great to talk with everyone. It's great to see everyone. Thanks for all of the emails and the calls and the chats. And we know that we're going to get through this together. So offer your services, offer your expertise. If you've got it, to people in your community, your global community, and stay safe and healthy, everyone.
We'll chat to you on Wednesday. Thanks, everyone. Be safe.
Bye.